I want to thank Mr. Big Voice for welcoming me back this morning. Many of you may have heard this song over the years and not really recognized what you were listening to. There are actually words that go along with this. It's called Hail Mighty Broncos, Champions of the West. And this song has its origins way back in the early 1960s when the Denver Broncos were charter members of the Fools Club, that is the American Football League. In the early years, the Broncos wore uniforms that made them look like the Swiss guards at the Vatican. And in 1962, a new owner came in, purchased the team, and they had a ceremony where they burned the vertical striped socks that the players were wearing. A public ceremony, greatly impressing the players, and the franchise started to get better. It wheezed along through the 1960s and most of the 1970s, got smoked in a Super Bowl in the late 70s, got smoked 3 times in Super Bowls in the 1980s, then won a couple in the 1990s, and split, of course, in recent years, a couple of years back, losing to the Seahawks, excuse me. Ugly uniform doesn't necessarily mean we have to disparage the Seattle Football Club, although I realize there are a lot of bandwagon fans in this area who got on board with the Seahawks as soon as the Seahawks actually won a championship. Before that, everybody was either a Broncos fan or a 49ers fan because you got on those bandwagons earlier. So the Broncos winners coming away last night in what is considered to be an upset in the Super Bowl. I just want to mention very quickly, I had a chance to, I spent the first half. I walked to Canyon Crest, and I spent the first half watching the game there. Inexpensive party. And I confess I ate 3 hot dogs and 6 chicken wings, washed it down with a glass of water, 2 glasses of water, I guess, before I was done. Watched until halftime. Now, when I went in, they literally asked me to see my picture ID. Maybe that was because I looked too young. Those of us who are 54, lots of wrinkles and gray hair, they've got to make darn sure that they know that we're actually 54. But I got inside and sat down, and they gave me a raffle ticket. Now, considering they advertise with the radio stations, the Town Square media stations here in Twin Falls, I really can't win that. So I got up at halftime and I saw a fellow sitting there with a couple of little kids watching the game. And at the end of the game, they were giving away a great big flat panel TV set. So I walked over and I gave him the ticket and said, hey, good luck. I don't know if he won or not. I went home and watched the second half once I got home. I watched it there. It was online. If you didn't know that, you could tune in and watch a live feed of it over the computer, which nice of the NFL to do that with the biggest game on the planet. And so you have the Broncos today, unexpected by many people to actually come away with a win. Peyton Manning not taking any credit for it, rightly so, because frankly, in the third quarter, I kept thinking they got to pull this guy out. He's going to blow this ball game. But the defense actually stood up and won the contest. You could have had, way back when the Broncos made their first Super Bowl appearance against the Dallas Cowboys, when Red Miller was coaching the Broncos, there were co-MVPs in that game. Harvey Martin and Randy White from the Cowboys were co-MVPs. And Ware, the one defensive lineman for Denver last night, could have been a co-MVP with linebacker Von Miller, but Miller walked away with it alone. But there was that much dominance in the ball game. Despite Peyton Manning looking terrible, the Broncos made Cam Newton look much worse. And I'm not at all brokenhearted about that. Newton stormed out of a news conference with media showing his true colors. This guy, ever since he got into the National Football League, I thought he was a hoodlum from the start. I have a friend and his wife has worked for the Carolina Panthers football organization. The Panthers took 1,100 members of their football teams. Can you believe that? NFL football teams have 1,100 staffers. The Broncos took 600 and some odd staffers to the ball game. The Panthers flew 1,100 staffers in. So one of my old bosses, his wife works in the marketing department for the Panthers, and he was trying to tell me last week, Cam Newton is a great guy. He's really changed his reputation. He does wonderful things because the publicist told him to. Go out and create a foundation, Cam, and give away a few jerseys to some underprivileged kids and get your picture taken and smile a lot for the cameras. But I thought from the very beginning that he was a cocky hoodlum. And getting up and storming out of the news conference last night and claiming racism. And There you go. That guy is showing his true colors. And this team, despite the fact they got on a roll and they won a lot of football games this year, I think they proved last night that they really weren't that good. Now, I bring up all of this talk about the football game last night. I know it angers some of our callers. Look, some ladies out there don't like football. I understand that. But most real men do. And yet a lot of ladies I know also like the game as well. They usually, though, come to watch the commercials. And I wanted to reference this off the top of the program today. We have a lot coming up, and Randy Staples will be joining us in the next half hour to talk a little bit of news going on around the state of Idaho. And we'll talk in the next hour about some of the politics going on in New Hampshire, where they have the first real full-fledged presidential primary, taking place tomorrow night. And we're only a few weeks away, March 8th. The Republican presidential primary is coming up March 8th here in Idaho, and then the Democrats are just simply having a caucus so they can flip a coin and give it to Hillary Clinton. That's going to be on March 22nd. We'll talk a little bit about those things in the next hour of the program, but I've got this. I watched many of those commercials last night. It's not a big deal for me. Some of them are funny. That's certainly true. But I came across this morning from National Review. Pro-choicers' reaction to Doritos Super Bowl ad exposes the weakness in their worldview. Did you see that one commercial? A woman is getting a sonogram taken, and her husband's eating Doritos, and she's ticked off because he's eating the Doritos while she's getting the sonogram done. But he waves the Doritos in front of the screen, and the baby starts to kick and move, trying to grab the Doritos. That actually upset the women in comfortable shoes. You know, the ladies out there who go get their hair cut at the barbershop, they are not pleased about that commercial. The writer says what's causing controversy is the portrayal of that unborn baby as one with an actual human personality. It's a commercial. It's a corn chip commercial. And yet, the women in comfortable shoes, they're pitching fits. As National Review Online's Jay Nordlinger noted earlier, I guess that's how he pronounces the name, the ad dares to portray the unborn child as human and, quote, not a meaningless blob of protoplasm, unquote. The pro-abortion activist group NARAL tweeted its disapproval, criticizing Doritos for, quote, using anti-choice tactic of humanizing fetuses, unquote. It's not a dog in the woman's belly. It's not a spider in the woman's belly. It's not an elephant in the woman's belly. What is it? And NARAL pro-choice, getting behind, of course, Hillary Clinton's campaign and the coin tosses, would like you to believe that a pregnancy, of course, is an illness and that it has to be eradicated. The writer goes on to say, humanizing fetuses with a question mark. How dare they imply that human fetuses are actually, wow, human? And again, it's a commercial, and it was funny. I actually happened to still be sitting. It was first half. I was sitting amongst the crowd over at Canyon Crest. People got a big laugh out of that. I guess there were no women in comfortable shoes that were at the particular party I happened to be at. If they had been there, they might have gotten up and started throwing things at the screen. You never know. Perhaps they would have had some aborted fetuses they could have thrown at the screen and clearly registered their displeasure in this situation. 8:15, Bill Colley with you on Top Story this morning on News Radio 1310. And it's a football game, okay? And there's some funny commercials in it. None of this is serious business. Serious business is reducing debts, getting someone a job that doesn't have a job, and ensuring that the guilty go to jail and that the innocent go free. It's a football game and some humorous commercials in between. I should say it's a football game, except for, well, the halftime show. I was just looking at my Facebook page this morning, and I noticed a post from Cal Thomas, and he had nothing good to say about the halftime show, which was soft pornography. Look at the way that Beyonce, is that her name, Beyonce? Look at the way she was dressed. I mean, even streetwalkers wear more clothes than that. What kind of a getup is that? And kids are watching this ball game. And this woman is walking around like she's engaging in some sort of sadomasochistic halftime show. That's considered okay. You see, the women in comfortable shoes don't have a problem with that because they're all pining for Beyonce. But they have an issue if somebody actually has a humorous commercial about a baby in its mother's womb. We have a caller with us. I should note the telephone number, 736-0300. You're listening to News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Bill Colley with you today on Top Story, and you're up next.
Hey, good morning, Bill. I did not know this until this morning when I was watching that CBS channel. But that Beyonce, I guess that's how you pronounce her names, is kind of like that caller you get every once in a while. You know, I couldn't understand the words she was saying. But this morning they was talking about that song. It was to the Black Panthers and that Black Lives Matter. She's got a new political song out, I guess.
Oh, so we've got to welcome her to the Super Bowl now because, of course, that's quite acceptable culturally.
Yeah, it was a slam on our police departments around the nation, her new hit.
Well, the NFL is run by a liberal cabal, and they don't seem to understand that most of the fans are actually just conservatives. The Cabernet sippers who run the league don't understand the guys who are guzzling, as Peyton Manning said last night, the Budweiser.
Yeah.
Who are actually watching the ball game.
Right.
Hey, thank you much for the telephone call, sir. It's 24. Going up to about 40 today, and looking ahead at the rest of the week, we're going to have temperatures near 50. Not that we're bragging about that, but it's going to feel really nice considering what we've gone through in recent weeks. Bill Colley with you this morning on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Peggy Hartshorn, writing today at the Washington Times. If you have access to a computer, you don't need to get a hard copy of the Washington Times, and you don't have a paywall. Everything at the Washington Times is available online. If you go to the opinion section, you'll see the headline, How Abortion Dehumanizes Everyone. And she writes about Adolf Eichmann and how the man was executed after being tried in Israel for his crimes in World War II. And she mentions a friend of hers that she met who grew up as a child near one of these death camps that the Nazis were running and can remember what it was like when the camp was liberated and these soulless, almost soulless people who were just skin and bones came walking through the streets of town, who had been completely dehumanized by the Nazi regime. And then the writer goes on to say, long before Roe v. Wade made abortion on demand in the United States a legal reality, this woman had identified the undeniable parallel between Eichmann's vision and abortion's promises. Lethal inhumanity in any form, whether by concentration camp or by abortion, quote, takes its toll, unquote. Quote, not only from the victim, but also from the oppressor, as well as from those who stand by idly or helplessly in silent acquiescence, unquote. And this woman, last name is Lori from Germany, she says, and so it is with abortion. The victim loses every time. The abortionist becomes emotionally detached and insensitive to the value of human life. The bystander, even though initially interested and concerned, may tire of the controversy and succumb to the semantic, and that means the Orwellian change in language, the semantic gymnastics and clever subterfuge of the proponents. In other words, calling it choice or a healthcare issue or reproductive rights or reproductive health. In other words, hey, I want to sleep around some more, but I don't want to have a child. Can I kill it? Yeah. Well, my soapbox for the morning. I know that disturbs some of the liberals out there, so we'll move on to something else in the next segment.